Hi, I'm DJ Ware, and in this episode of the Cyber Gizmo, we're going to take a look at some security tools and how those are used to assess a system for any vulnerabilities that it might have or a level of risk that we might accept before placing that system into service. And today we're going to be looking at Red Hat Enterprise Linux, and I just simply chose this because it is a very popular OS in the server world and the cloud worlds, and so it is probably something that you may run into in your professional career. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be looking at SCAP, which is the Security Content Automation Protocol, and this, of course, is maintained by the National Institute of Standards, or NIST. There are a number of vendors that provide SCAP tools, and they have to be accredited and accepted by the NIST in order to be approved and for compliance, if you're going to use those tools for compliance. And this particular tool, of course, has been. So the first thing that the SCAP Workbench wants to know is what content to load. Now, I don't have all the sources that are possible. There are Debian, Arch, there's also Mac OS, there's Windows, there's SUSE, there's Ubuntu, and you can choose some other ones for Apache and for different databases, and also for Firefox as well. But we're going to load it just for RHEL 8. And the first thing it gives me is a little bit of a menu here. It tells me a title. It tells me if I have any customizations selected. That would be used if I had created a customization file earlier. I could then go back to that and then reload those customizations for repeatability. The next is the profile, and there are two for Red Hat 8 at the moment. The first one is the Operating System Protection Profile. This was developed by the National Information Assurance Partnership. That is an organization run by the NSA. And it is heavily based on SE Linux. So the SE Linux extensions are definitely a major part of that particular profile's assessment. There's also the Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, and those would be used for payment servers or e-commerce websites. And so we're going to go ahead and use that one today for the assessment here. And it shows that there's 124 rules. That's validated down here as well. I am going to run this on the local machine, but I could run this over SSH to a remote site as well that was identically set up with Red Hat. These are some of the rules that it's going to assess. I could do a dry run, which the only thing that's going to do is show me the command line with its options for this particular setting. I can also fetch remote resources. These are to retrieve any updates to the OVALs. OVALs are the Open Vulnerability Assessment Language, and they are referenced by the profile, which is an XCCDF file. That is the Extensible Configuration Checklist Description Format. And I don't know who comes up with these long names, but it's basically an XML file. The XCCDF is basically an XML file that has the requirement. It has the test that needs to be performed. It has an expected result. And then it has a reference to any other criteria or other requirements that are referencing that same one. The requirements that all of these use are part of the Common Criteria Evaluation, or CCE standard. You can also call that just the common criteria. I mean, that's perfectly all right, and people will know exactly what you're talking about. The other option on here is to remediate, which is within the OVAL, there is a shell script or a Ansible script that will fix the vulnerability and make it what the requirement wants it to be. It doesn't care what it is, it just will change it to what it needs to be. So let's do it. Let's do a customize. And in here, it's opening up that XCCDF file, and it's showing me some of the things that it's checking for. And I can click on this and a little description pops up over here as to what it's looking for and to what the expected result and values are. So here I can add or remove rules, whatever I need in order to meet the requirements of my organization. If I select, hang on a second, let's go ahead and select OK. If I do that, then it says I have unsaved changes up here, and I have to save this profile, and I can do that right here, save the customizations, or I can revert back to the one without customizations. So I reverted this completely back. And I'm going to go ahead and start a scan. And of course you have to sudo to do this. And then I'm going to wait for the scary part, which is everything is failing. Now, one of the things that one of the famous cook shows in the 60s and 70s used to do was they would prepare 2 sets of things ahead of time, or 1 set ahead of time, and one that they were actually cooking. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to switch over to one that's already done. And when it finishes, and it'll take about, that'll take anywhere between 6 and 12 minutes to run, depending upon the speed of your system. But here it's given me some information about what's happened, and if I have any warnings, it tells me about those, and any errors, it tells me about those. None of those are earth-shattering, so I'm going to go ahead and just close those. The next thing I want to do is I could look at the results here, but they're not very satisfying. This just tells me, okay, I can go do that, but I really need some more information about it. So I'm going to go bring up the report. And this just confirms that I ran PCI DSS on Red Hat 8, same as the one I started before. It tells me I'm not in compliance. I failed 87 of the 124 rules, and I have 36 passed. It provides a scoring, and this scoring is not based on the number of rules. It's based on a percentage of those that have passed. So I'm about almost 50% of the way through, and then it gives you the areas where you have problems. So let's take this first one. And it tells me the date it ran, tells me the severity, which is medium. This is the common criteria evaluation requirement. And if there are any references, this is a NIST, that is a special requirement of the NIST. And then these are probably, I can click on them and it should open a reference someplace for those. Maybe not. But I can open up the one for the NIST. And then we can go down, that was AC6, right? So I'll go down to AC6. And that one is least privilege. So let me go back. Go back into this one. Yeah, AC6. So this is saying that a group owner of all log files is written by syslog should be admin, and it found it probably to be root. Yep, to be root. And so the only thing that needs to happen here is the owner of that needs to be identified correctly as admin. Let's look at one that actually has a remediation. That one doesn't. Let's go down and find one of the high ones. Those usually do. There's one. Yeah, this one has remediations. So in this case, we have an RPM, can check file permissions of installed software packages and make sure that they agree with the way the vendor had set them up. And I've got a couple that appear to have changed, and so it is not giving them a pass. And so the shell script for this, to fix this problem, is right here, and that's going in to basically pull them out of the package and reset them. And that's how they're doing that one. Again, same thing. These are all the references to the externals, and also a different requirement for the common criteria evaluation. I don't know what else I can tell you about that except for this one. You'll run into these occasionally. You could run into a not check simply because the operating system version you're running doesn't agree with the profile that you're trying to run it on. For example, if I were to run a Ubuntu one, which is only for 18.04 and there's some for 16.04, if I'm running on 19.04, every one of those will come back as being not applicable, simply because it's the wrong version of the OS that I'm running on. So in this case, it's the defense requires a patch within 30 days of this would be security patches within a finding, and there's no candidate for application because usually these systems, before they're accredited, are not allowed to be placed on a network. And so there's no way to validate this requirement, and so that passes to you to make sure that the system stays in compliance with that requirement. Another one down here is this is a VPN. This is Swan, and of course PCI requires that any remote access to a server that stores credit card information has to use a suitably PKI encrypted VPN. So as I remember the requirement, it's been some time, but that is what I recall. So after I've read through all that and I'm satisfied with it, I can then generate a bash script with the remediations in it. Or I can go rerun the scan and just simply click the remediation button. But I think what I'm going to do is we'll go this way. So I'll bring it up and we'll take a look at it. So here's the remediation for PCI. This is the one I just wrote. As you recall, there was 87 failures, and so we have a set in here for every single one of those failures to correct it where it can. Now, if it's unknown, it's going to appear as a 1, as an unknown. So I should have a script in here for at least the 87 failed ones. Okay, so I could then run that, or I can generate a Ansible or a Puppet, and be able to process those as well. Let's see, what else can I tell you about this? I of course could save the result as an HTML or an XCCDF result file. This isn't that useful because I can't call it back into this, but I could save this. That would be useful in order to do this. Now there are some tools within the SCAP family of products that are offered on the OSCAP site that allow you to pick up all the runs from all the servers and collect them into a database so that you have a record of all the compliance tests that you've done and when you did them. But here's the thing, two things. One, don't count on this to be your sole version of accreditation, because it certainly is not. I wouldn't want to bet my paycheck on this being the sole basis of saying, yeah, my site's, it's definitely secure, we're fine. And the second reason is that you need to do this periodically in order to keep it current with events that are going on around you. So with that, let me come back over to the other site. And we're going to take a look at another tool. Let's see, I don't need that up anymore. I do need this one up though. Okay, yeah, it finally finished, but we don't need this anymore. So let's go ahead and bring up a shell, and we're going to look at one that a tool that's written by CISOFY, CISOFY, and it's a tool called Linus. This is just a set of shell scripts, and what we're going to do, I can do this on a local system. I can, just like before, just like the SCAP workbench, I can run it on a through an SSH connection to a remote machine. But it also has the ability to run this script on Docker images as well. So you can do an audit system. Now this is a little bit of a different test in that it does not. There's two versions of this software. One is free, and it's available for download. You can use it as often as you want. There's also a paid commercial license. It's actually a subscription model, and that is a little bit more robust, has the ability to look at vulnerabilities, and it has remediation, and it also has compliance. Whereas this tool doesn't have any of those things. You have to track down the errors yourself, and you have to go and fix them yourself. There are recommendations in here, and we'll take a look at some of those, but it does not provide guidance, so you need someone that is familiar with the operating system in order to take advantage of this. Now, I'm not going to wait for this one to complete either, because it's going to take quite a while, so I'll switch back over to the other site. And we'll look at another Julia Childs. And so this, again, is an identical run. And the results of the scan, 66% of the tests passed out of 254 tests performed. A little bit more testing than actually the other one does. There's a firewall. I don't have a malware scanner, so it's marked that as bad boy. And the compliance status will always be a question mark in the free version. It just simply does not know. Let me get rid of this little distraction. And then it produces some log files that I can go back and look at the results of the test. But let me just scroll up here. So it found some criticals. And these are warnings, and so it found that the name servers aren't accessible. No, they're not. This is a NAT, and so they aren't available to this side of the network. And then this is the a virtual NIC that's created by the initial install. It has promiscuous mode turned on. Linus doesn't like that, and so it's saying turn it off or whitelist it. It's telling me to turn off dumps. Password age, minimum, maximums, UMask needs to be more strict, and then it's telling me my temp and var directories need to be on different file systems. Not arguing that point, it just seems silly that this would be in a security evaluation. That's more of an operational thing. And then this is update DB, USB drivers, firewall drivers are present. Yep, I agree, those should be turned off. You don't want to have any kind of help to exfiltrate data from your system. And then there's the reason for the name server problems, that the communication was blocked. Yeah, hope so. And then the ARP monitoring software is not present. I don't need ARP monitoring on this system. I do that from the switch. And then we have a number of SSH things that need to be changed. Don't disagree with any of those. Here's a cryptic one. You have deleted files that are still in use. I'm going to copy this, and we'll find out why that is later. I need a banner. Yeah, these are always helpful ways to keep attackers out. Always warn them, hey, there's something important here. I'm sure that helps. I'm positive it helps. I know it's a government requirement a lot of times, but that seems silly. Hey, there's something here we're stealing. It's kind of like putting a sign in your yard. This is systat needs to be turned on. The audit daemon, of course, is empty and needs to have a rule set. Now, I have seen this tool still flag this even after the audit daemon has a valid set of rules, and so I don't know why that is, but you may run into that problem too. I have restarted audit daemon a number of times, and this tool still says it's empty, and it's not. Don't know where it's looking. Maybe if you're having that problem, maybe we can look at it together and figure it out. But I don't know why it does that. It's just started that recently with this 3.0 tool. So I'm thinking it's probably a bug. I need aid or tripwire or something. This one says I need some automation tools, or at least verify that the system somewhere is using Ansible or Puppet. Again, those are great things, but again, that's operations. That should not have anything to do with security. So I really disagree with this being here. Maybe you feel differently. Syscontrol has some values that need to be set to bring this into compliance. Don't disagree with that. Compilers, I don't agree with this requirement at all. Putting your root user as the owner of the compiler and then forcing your developers to use root. That is not a good idea. Don't agree with that. 100% don't agree with that. I do agree that a production site should not have compilers on it, however. So if you're moving this to production, you should be taking the compilers off, not setting them to the root user. That would be a really dumb idea. Hardening the system, so at least one malware scanner. Yeah, it's already told me down below it's got a problem with that. So As you can see, I've already run the command, but I will do it again. And so the command I'm going to run is Linus. This is the show details, and this is the test ID log-2190. I don't know exactly what that means, although I could read up above and I could see what it means. But this is a result of the patch that was done after the initial install. And so for some reason, the DNF packages, the RPM packages left some files in place, and it could have just been as simple as, I go back to the logs and look at it, it's probably as simple as trying to remove a directory that isn't empty. Be my guess, and so some investigation needs to be done there to see what's going on. So a couple of comments about this. Linus is not a bad tool at all. It's pretty good. It's a good start. Again, I don't go, oh, I've run it, it's fine, it passed, I'm done, I'm at 100%, my system is secure. No, your systems are never going to be secure. It's a matter of risk, and then being able to manage them. We talked about that last time a lot, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that again. The other thing is to use more than one tool. A lot of times when we were accrediting systems for the federal government, we would have to pass through at least 18 different steps in order to get there. And this set is only one. You have to get on the network first in order to set up your software, and then your software itself has to be evaluated. So it's more than just a process for hardening the system. You have to look at this as steps to getting your site into full production. So you're never done. This is never going to be the only thing you're going to do, and it shouldn't be. And so I'm going to leave it there today. And I think I'll go back to talking more about Linux a little bit on future videos. But I do hope you enjoyed this topic on security and some of the tools that are available to you. One thing I would tell you about, there are some CVE trackers. Those are really excellent for getting a handle on vulnerabilities in your current system. Unfortunately, there are only a handful. Vuls is a good one. BULS, it's a very good one, but it's very time consuming to set up. There's another one called DebCcan, and that is for Debian. You can run it on Ubuntu, but you're going to find a bunch of false positives in Ubuntu because Ubuntu patches as well. And the DebCcan CVE scanner only looks at patches done by Debian. So yeah, it's going to flag stuff that's been fixed by Ubuntu as not being fixed. So you're going to run into that. There's another really good tool that Arch Linux has. It's called Arch Audit. It's a very simple tool. It's actually brilliantly done. It goes back out to the CVE databases, and it compares it to the packages and the versions of the packages you have installed. And it just gives you a simple report. It says, hey, you got this package installed. Here are all the CVEs to the right that are affecting this package. And I think it's just excellent. I wish they would port that over to the other OSs. So if you guys are listening, please do that. We'd appreciate it. So I'm going to leave it there today. If you enjoyed this topic, please like and subscribe. Hope to see you again real soon, and bye for now.